Hello and welcome to episode perhaps number four of our podcast. We are on Spotify, which is was an interesting create flow, and there you can get our audio. But since we share a lot of links, you may want to watch us on YouTube. We may have video on Spotify eventually.
So, this is amateur podcasting at its best, right? Like this is learning all the workflows for the first time. I love it. This is great.
Yeah, and there's no one way to do it, so it is what it is, and we are just talking.
Did you? So I was when I was looking for links this week, I saw a lot. Here's what I saw on the internet, especially on Twitter. Everyone's freaking out about too many like 10 AI generated tools that are going to streamline your workflow, right?
That's good.
And there's like a meme about it of like Batman like slapping Robin as he's coming forward saying, here's all the stuff. So there's a lot going on right now, and everybody's talking about it all of a sudden, or at least within some small echo chambers in which I seem to hang out. Have you noticed the same thing?
I have, like, this is the third tweet I have. It's like, can't believe just fine tuned a 33 billion parameter in a few hours. Watch me as I go. It's just like so many tweet streams around this stuff. I'm sure, yeah. Behind the prompt, a breakdown. It's like we're at an
Oh, I love
AI.
that it's work though. It's great.
It's
Makes it
cool,
easier.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. But we're at a point where it is like these guys know AI and they are generating an incredible amount of content. You're like, all this content is very well written. You're like, maybe they are generating this by AI. This is
Hmm.
insane. Thanks to AI. It's just like my whole. So I think there's one thing which maybe it is an inflection point in the industry. The other thing might be these are the most active people on Twitter. The other thing might be like to be active on Twitter, you just need like to have constant tweets, which they're using AI to generate. I don't know, or I'm just following these people. But yes,
What one way or the other. Um,
we can add our voice to the cacophony.
I saw a good one. Speaking of adding voice, so we've been talking about like voice generated, essentially like building a model out of your voice so that you could create scripts and input stuff and have it generate and read things with your own voice. Um, there was a crazy case study of a guy who did something. It was like for Carfax.com or like one of the sites where you buy cars from. I can't remember the names of them.
Okay.
Um, and they generated 1.2 million videos for everybody who bought a car. So they would send you a video, personalized video to you, Pat, and like, your car. And it was a video from your car about the time when you bought it, what was going on in the world. And there was all these like customized things and why that was a great car and where you are and all these things. So they made 1.5 million videos, each one not completely custom, but it kind of followed a story arc with all these like inserted points of custom content that I thought was wild. Like, what a weird use case, right? To create some sort of like custom reach out connection to people using
About the
the
car that they
LLM of
bought,
people's
or
voices. Sorry,
it's about. Like, is there a way I can find this thing?
AI car videos. I don't know. Custom. Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay.
I just saw it the other day and I was like, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't totally follow, but it sounds interesting. So it's like an auto-generated video based on your previous car purchase.
Yeah, and it was like a thank you video, essentially, like a
I
video
see.
from your car, like it was written from the
Oh,
perspective of your car,
I
saying
see.
thanks for picking me out of all the cars on Carfax, right? Like that kind of thing. Sorry, I buried the lead there a little bit and got into the tech, but yeah.
I see. Got it. Cool. Um, what should we go through?
All right, I got a couple links. You know what? I picked out fun links this week, like just things that were fun. So check out Meme Morph. So the idea with Meme Morph, when you crack it open, it's in the chat.
Okay.
Um, is essentially you are able to upload a bunch of pictures of yourself, and so the AI avatar uh, theme is huge, right? And AI face replacement is huge. So what if you could create a picture of yourself and put it in all of your favorite memes? So essentially, you are, the Leo DiCaprio meme. You are the, the aliens guy meme. You are, scumbag Steve, whatever, right? Like just if you scroll down, you can see a bunch of them here. I just think this is fun. Like this is hilarious. Like there's something so goofy about this.
Yeah, it is definitely like peak internet. Using AI.
The aliens guy, right? It's like you could be the aliens guy, like wearing his suit, making that face with that hair.
Oh God. Yeah, pretty amazing.
To me, what I love about this is like it feels so fun, right? Like a lot of the AI stuff, it's like whoa, like it's almost scary, but it's nice when things are just like fun, right?
Yeah, it's also something that like you do a lot. So like I use memes all the time, and it's like, well, this is like it's almost like adding text to memes. Like actually, like adding text is pretty cool, and then putting my own face in there is just like, yeah, maybe that'll be like the equivalent in future. You'll just be like, well, I can add a text box, or I can like put my face in things. Be like as expected of a feature. Yeah.
Yeah, like almost like emoji, right? Like you just tap a button and you could drop your face into anything.
Yeah. And then it becomes like, are we talking about AI really? Or are we talking about like image manipulation? Like, I don't know if you saw the latest Photoshop stuff, but
Yeah, it's
it
wild.
it's insane. Let's see, Photoshop, AI, fill. Yeah, so these are some great examples.
Yeah, the generative fill for making images bigger.
Yeah. And you just like select this stuff, put a prompt in of what it's going to be, and then boom. I think the interesting thing is like this functionality existed already. Like this has been around, but the fact that it's now in an editing tool is what is going to make it actually work as a workflow rather than just like a cool demo. And
Yeah.
Photoshop is definitely poised to figure that out. It'll be also interesting to see like is there an AI first um, version of this? And I think Runway is kind of trying to do that. Like, can they use this moment to shift a bunch of people who use Photoshop every day and kind of like move them over to like a new tool? Kind of like how Figma did with the web.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think this is it. Product.
On one side, it makes you think that all the incumbents are just gonna like add AI to their thing, and then they're gonna, they've already got all the users, right? So how is anybody else gonna come in? And
Mm-hmm.
then on the other side, you've got tools like Runway who are kind of just came out of nowhere doing it right. Like, they've got so much going on there that it's gonna be like, well, maybe we just start fresh. Maybe we don't need all of that old stuff. We just use these few new tools in a way like the like you said, the AI first. Um, sort of approach. It's rather than, oh, I can add AI through a menu to an existing old workflow that I was using and just kind of improve that
Yeah.
versus no, I can come at it completely from the other direction, like kind of like bottom up, top down, right?
Yeah, and I guess I just think back to like Sketch is one example, or let's say Sketch is people started using it. It was like a small group of people who started using it, and they loved the tool. Like
Hmm.
there's like the technology piece, and like this kind of reads like a set of features, and they're like basically features of Stable Diffusion,
Hmm.
and they're like, okay, these are capabilities. And you put those into Photoshop, and they're like in a menu, in the filters menu, and they're like alongside motion blur, and you're like, okay, this is just like an extra thing I have to think about. And it's like, is it delightful to use? Because I think the thing is, all these capabilities can exist, and they do exist behind a command line, which is not a delightful experience for people who are like in the flow of making a cool thing. And
Yes.
so, how do you, like, I think like the delight of the tools will define who is adopting them. Again, I've seen that over and over again. It's like a really delightful tool that people want to use, and then more people start using it, It gets more functionality. So like Sketch went through that, Figma went through that. VS Code versus like let's say Dreamweaver or like Eclipse or like whatever like behemoth um, uh, developer environment that you can think of. Now it's all VS Code, which is really like it's like written in the web, JavaScript based, and it's like super fast,
Mm.
and it integrates with GitHub. I guess GitHub is another one. Like they had like version control, and then it moved to GitHub because it's quicker and is a delightful tool that people want to use. So I think that perhaps we're still exploding the area of all these features that you can do with Stable Diffusion and other tools. But it's like who's going to like synthesize those into a really delightful use case tool, which might be image editing, but it also might be like accounting or like stock market predictions or what have you.
Do you think that it's when you talk about the delight and those examples that you shared, is it about the simplicity? And that it's been, there's every tool and every product kind of goes through this phase where you just keep adding stuff, right? Some people want it and some people don't. The product gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's more and more junk in it. And then at some point, it's like, we can't turn like a chair into a table, right? Like we can't go from this and to that. We just need to like start over. We can't, recode this, as it were. And it's, more about simplicity.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of like removing buttons. And you can look at a product and you can kind of see the org structure, right? So like this is Photoshop. Let's look at this thing. I don't know. I don't know if this is like the latest, but open image in new tab. So this is Photoshop, right? So you have like your panels, and you
Yep.
have like your layers, and then you have like a million tools here, and like each of these tools is a team, and you just know that like people are like, oh, you're gonna put my text tool inside of like the object tool. Come on, man. And it's like we can't switch out the background foreground thing. That's like core to what Photoshop's identity is. And then you
Yeah.
look, and then I think what was interesting about Sketch is they just came at it and they said, look, this is like a Mac OS app. So let's look at this. And they're just like, hey, here's all the layers of stuff. Like, where do my tools go? Oh, there's like a couple tools up here. And also, ultimately, you're going to use shortcuts. You can make these things really fast. And then
Mm.
they added all these modular layers. So, like, rather than having to have all these panels open, it's like if I don't have a fill, that thing is collapsed. It's like just doesn't exist. And so,
Mm.
like, just getting all the cruft away and just deciding what is the most important thing. Well, it's where your object is in the canvas, and it's like where your object is in the hierarchy. That's really all that matters. Everything else is kind of like subtly subdued. And even now, you can see that there is feature bloat compared to like an old Sketch version
Oh yeah,
because
of
they've
course.
fired up new teams, and every new team needs a button. But then what that did is it allowed Figma to essentially copy the Sketch interface. And so you can see they've got the layers, they've got the pages, they got the
Hmm.
tools, and so like set this new precedence of simplicity. And they've now added a bunch of bloat because they're doing prototyping, but a lot of that core stuff that was about the digital design workflow, like you can't do any image editing. You can't even invert an image in Figma. You can't like
Mm.
select do your lasso in Figma. It's just like do that somewhere else and then bring it into Figma. So yeah, knowing what you want to remove and how people want to interact with your program. I think the thing that Figma did that killed Sketch was you can open it in a web browser, and like Sketch was just a Mac OS app, and they're decidedly Mac OS. And I think in many ways that killed them because now a developer can't open up your file, like you have to download things. But
Right.
Figma just like it used the next thing, which is the cloud, to like in this level of simplicity, it made space to like cloudify. And then the question is like now with AI, like what is that? Is it about layers? I don't know. There might be just like a different concept there that resonates.
Mm. Yeah. What I think about when I think of this is a couple things, come to mind right away. And, there's this concept in business. It applies to features and it applies to products. And so let's say you have a product line, you start having more than one product, right? what is the likeliness that each one of those products is going to be contributing equally to the bottom line, right? It's zero. Like it'll never happen. One will always contribute a little bit more than the other. So then you start to look at one as like, well, this is like a problem, area. So you start to invest in it, and it doesn't move. And you're thinking, okay, well, how do we make this better? And start putting in all this time to improve things that essentially are, not valued, because we have this problem solving mentality, and we say, hey, I need to fix this because it's broken, as opposed to leaning into the thing that's actually working and just killing the thing that's, unnecessary. And for business people and strategists, it's really, really hard to make this choice, because there is revenue coming from it. There is real customers. Some of them actually like it, right? This is like what we're talking about with features in the UX. There's pieces that we actually like, yet we have too many, and it's lost efficiency, and we've lost our voice, and we've lost simplicity, and in doing so, we've lost that a bit of that delight, and created a different type of experience, for the customer and all of the people who work on this thing, right?
Hmm. Yeah. It does make me think, because we're talking about how do you focus essentially, like, we're looking at the Photoshop version of like a bunch of orgs, a bunch of functionality, and it is like an old product, so it's just like been adding and adding and adding. So you empathize with that. And you're like, well, who's like, is there going to be like a CEO or like a head of product who's going to be like, get rid of all these buttons? They're just never going to be able to do that. They're
No.
like, add a little triangle below so you can long press. It's like, come on, guys. So that's just not going to happen. The other avenue is like you just build it from scratch, and you like start it with the focus and like, hey guys, this is what we're doing. Like we actually don't have those other features, so it's not even like a decision we have to remove them. We just have vector drawing. Like Sketch started with just vector drawing, and kind of went from there. But it does make me think like maybe delight is a very narrow use case. Like maybe that's what you can't have. I'll put it out there. You can't have delight in a product that has too many features. I don't know.
it's I'm trying to think of a time when I've experienced that, and I can't, at this point in time.
Let's do
um,
delight etymology. Is that etymology?
yeah, there you go.
To charm,
mm,
to take great pleasure in. So it's from deletier or delete, to charm, which is funny. It's from delete. I wonder if that's related. Anyway, um, yeah, I just wonder what
as
it.
we're talking about simplicity, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what it comes from. Playing tricks, experience geared to delight both young and old. These are contexts. Yeah, yeah, I do
All
think
right.
there's a charming aspect to it, which is like, how has this thing charmed me? And like, charm is about like knowing what I'm after, like what I'm trying to like do, and like what my goals are, and like, oh, like, thank you for like bringing me here. And you just can't get that when like somebody's coming to your product to like edit raw photo images that they took on their beautiful camera, and somebody else is trying to like make a web app. Like, you just, I don't know that you can charm both of those people in the same way.
There's the saying in um, two metaphors around, like, when you try to do something for everybody, right? Like, or create something that has this extremely horizontal, usage. Um, the idea that if you cast a really, really wide net, you get you could potentially capture a lot of fish, right? But also the holes are so big that a lot of what you're actually looking for, kind of goes through. Um, the second metaphor, that I think is delighting here, is when you're speaking so clearly to one specific user or customer, and you're saying, you the problem of, like you just mentioned, right? Someone, trying to emit, like, edit this like super high res pro image, and then someone who's just trying to crop a gif or something like that. They have different problems. Like, their problems are so different. So how do you market to those people, right? What's and when they're looking around the product trying to solve their problem, it's hard, as opposed to if you know this person's problem and you can speak directly to them and just whisper the words that they want to hear. They're like, oh my goodness. The more narrow it is, they're like, you talking to me? Nobody talks to me. I'm like left alone out here. It's like, that's amazing. And so, I think that idea of like really niching down is something that speaks to the power of delight, is, when you've done something that's so specific. At the same time, we got to call out Apple here, who, makes extremely horizontal products, and they seem to delight people pretty well, right?
Yeah. Do they? Interesting. Yeah, I've
Well,
heard
they surprise and delight. It's built into their design methodology, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I do look at I look at the kind of, they do have a general machine, right? So we're using a computer, and it is a general machine. And like right now, we're broadcasting a podcast. I'm like drawing a thing. So there's like an operating system level, but it's the applications that have really designed like this is the product platform. Like they have like a platform, which is their computers, and it's a beautiful platform that developers like to build apps for. So in many ways, the product they're developing is actually targeted at developers who want to make great software. Um, but what was my point?
It's one of those days.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the one with Apple I look at is the Apple Watch, because you can see in there that they released this watch and they're like, this is like going to be like, filled with apps, and it's going to be a new screen just like your Mac. And it's
Yep.
like, well, I don't know. And then they found a niche, and their niche is like one, luxury jewelry, and the other one is like very high intensity sport slash climbing slash scuba diving, right? And it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I can
The
see,
extremes.
yeah, I can see why we would start with a segment in mind for the watch, because it's not a general computing device. Like it is essentially a notification. You have one. What do you think about it?
I love it. And so the reason why I love it, is because you can't get lost in the scroll, on your Apple Watch. It doesn't allow you to, um, essentially, you get a calendar notification on your phone. You open it up, and 5 minutes later, you're like, what the heck was I here for? Right? It's like a calendar notification. On the
Mm-hmm.
watch, you get a notification, and it's just that. So it's less of a content consumption and exploration device, so much as almost like an input device. So, I tried to go a month without using my phone and just use my watch for it. And that's how I like kind of got into speech to text, right? Because you can't type. So I started, being like, okay, message Patricia, blah blah blah, right? You press one button to call an Uber. There's no notes. There's just like one button. Bring me an Uber here, right? It's like really really simple and good. Um, my calendar was there. I kind of had everything I needed, and it was like having a dumb phone, on your wrist. Um, for me, it's the limited nature of the product is what makes it great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. Whereas I think Mac OS is like, yeah, I think a lot of these mediums are defined by their inputs. It's like mouse, keyboard, like there's just kind of like inputs that come along with that allow you to do certain things. Like you're never gonna make a website in a watch. That's not what it's for, right? But
No.
Mac OS, you can certainly check your notifications. You can do all that stuff on an operating system. And Apple Watch needs a companion. Like you need an iPhone as well. So it is
Yep.
more of like peripheral than it is a
So technically, you
computer.
don't need the companion. It's just everyone uses it. So I was able to so you need the companion to set it up. It's not a standalone device, but you could leave your phone at home for an entire month and just use the watch. I did that, right?
Yes, but where would you write your emails?
Oh, just from computer.
Right. So that's what I'm
I
saying. I
wasn't
guess,
doing
yeah.
mobile email. It's like, okay, that's just not a thing for me
I
in
see.
November.
Yeah. 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 Which I think is like the Apple iPhone is kind of that thing that you could do everything with. You could write your emails, you could do all that stuff, but it's mobile as well. So I don't know. Like I guess that's another thing to look at is mobility. Anyway, that be cool to do more diagrams. So tried to
I
get
like the
a
diagrams.
start on it. By the way, they just released a Fig Jam for iPad. Give it a
Oh,
try.
nice.
Yeah, I think I haven't tried it, but I think it's probably like a nice drawing experience.
Decent experience.
Yeah,
Do you have a Apple Pencil?
I have an Apple Pencil. My kid uses our iPad. I don't really use the iPad.
No. Okay. So it's his iPad. It's Chris's iPad.
Yeah, it's got
All
all
right.
kinds of kid fingerprints on it.
Pink eye and junk.
Yes, lots of.
Um,
Yeah.
I say that because there's pink eye all over my iPad right now. It's bad. uh, Here, I'll share with you. Like I got a couple more like fun links for today. So
Okay.
this is Meme Cam, and
Oh,
you know what? It's actually you can't share it on your screen. It's basically you just have to open this up on your phone,
okay.
and so you can upload an image, but generally you open it up on your phone and it's got the image. Yeah, there you are. So hit the button, see what happens. So much. What's working hard or avoiding social interaction? We'll never know. Not bad,
Yeah,
really.
this is pretty good.
This is pretty
Pretty
legit.
good.
So like I did one. I took a picture of like got this like stuffed animal, like my house, and so it just took a picture of this thing, and it says, and it's actually I don't know how it knew this. This is my like old monkey from when I was a kid, and it says when you've accepted your adulthood, but childhood refuses to let go.
Let's see it
P.S.
again.
Accepted your adulthood, but your childhood refuses to let go. P.S. Binky comes to dinners.
And that's your photo. That's like your.
Yeah, I
monkey?
just took this photo like randomly. And I was like, it was really good. So I'm a net promoter on MemeCam. It's doing
Okay,
a super
love
decent
it.
job.
Love it. It'd be great to just have that subtitle in meetings too. Just like letting you know what your meme would look like with this face on.
Yep, just you could just screen capture people, screen cap pictures of people and throw it in there and
So
send them to
invasive.
them, right?
Love it. Yeah.
I thought of like a sort of like a bean prank the other day, which was just signing people up for newsletters. Like there's so many freaking newsletters out there. So just putting in other people's email addresses on newsletters, signing them up for like weird ones without them knowing. Don't do that to me, anybody. But you know, it's, there's one there. So here's a couple that are like super. I feel like these are kind of fun consumer use cases that people would actually do, and then may have like some like longer term usage. So try on any outfits using AI. Obviously, this would be more useful in like a clothing like website, right? If you can just see yourself wearing the clothes, that's kind of probably better. But this is kind of interesting. I feel like this is fun. This is like people would like this. I don't know how it works as a completely standalone thing, but this type of functionality I could totally see. People always want to know how they're going to look and stuff, right? Like we're super vain creatures, and so this is a big one. And you can really see this getting built into like any type of like stock photo generation tool. Oh, the outfit's wrong, I need them to look more professional, so you just press a button and switch it. Or oh, the yeah, you get it, right? Like it's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got any comments on outfits.
Yeah, it just reminds me of like Uniqlo. I don't know if you saw this mirror outfit thing. And I remember this was like years ago that they did this.
The magic mirror, yeah.
Yeah. And you can like, yeah, this is the one that I tried. So you put this on and then like it changes color and stuff. You could choose like, it was just so bad. And so I think it was like super pixelated and like, and the thing about clothing is like it's very like specific. Like if it's like a different shine or if it like fits poorly, like that is the whole product. And so it's interesting that like with more static images, you can get better at that, and you can imagine like applying now just much better recognition to this mirror thing. But like here, even like look at that, like it's totally like just like a clip art overlay on her. So I think a
Right
lot of
idea, the wrong time back then,
yes,
right? When the technology just wasn't there.
totally. So now there's like all these ideas that flunked that like oh there might be something there. Like I do
We
even
can go
think
back. Yeah.
QR codes. Like I read this thing about like all these restaurants are now getting rid of their QR codes. It's actually very frustrating. I just want a menu. But you can imagine a time where QR codes are actually just like I look on my phone and I just see the menu. And so I think there's a lot of things that are people are like, oh, that was tech for tech's sake, or like that thing didn't
Yeah.
work at all. But it's like actually it just wasn't done yet. Like it wasn't fully baked. And that's how I kind of feel about this mirror and this outfits thing is like maybe this is the time for that thing to work.
That guy's sleeves are way too short. Like you said, it's like the fit is everything, in a way. It's like, I don't know. Does that jacket actually have short sleeves, or is it just referencing the image on the left where he, uploaded with rolled up sleeves, right?
He also lost a lot of weight, I imagine. But who knows?
Potentially.
Cool. So what about this one? Trying to same sort of use case, I guess, eh?
It's the same hairs with our powerful AI technology to generate different hairstyles and see which ones suits you the best. Works for men and women. Um, I I think that this is a huge thing. There's so many women are always like building Pinterest boards of different haircuts and trying to figure out what their next cut's going to be and flip-flopping on making the commitment like, oh, okay, I'm going to go shorter this time, or like, oh no, I'm going to grow it out, but like how's it going to look, and what if it's in between, etc. So this is I feel like this solves a real problem for people who want to solve this problem, and are into it.
Yeah, the thing I think about this and the outfits thing is again kind of going back to the Uniqlo mirror. Like, where AI will help is it like I'm not gonna go to these guys for a hairstyle. Like I'm gonna go to my hair cutter, barber, hairdresser for a hairstyle. How can you give them the tools to actually just better have a conversation? So like with a lot of
Yeah.
this AI stuff, it's like an augment or a feature that's being added to an existing service to make it a lot smarter to kind of predict things or visualize things. And but it's not going to be like yeah, I think it does feel like a business to business play, which is like, hey, we got 4 new haircuts for you to try, and you send that out to your clients, and they can like see what they'd look like, and you've already
Yeah.
done like the 3D headshot of them, and so like yeah, I wonder how these products will be inserted into products, and then I also wonder on the Figma Photoshop Sketch example, what new products will AI be foundational to, right? So this is not a AI is not foundational to getting a haircut. It's a
Nope.
feature, right? But where might it be foundational and where might it be a feature? It's interesting.
All right. So again, this is just a goofy one. ourbaby.ai.com. Or wait, no, not dot. Ourbaby.ai.
Oh,
So
weird.
you upload this is like If They Made It from Conan. Remember they used to like take 2 photos of celebrities and like Photoshop them together,
Oh
and
yeah.
they were like horribly. They really like played it up where they made it look really bad, right? It's called If They Made It, was the thing.
If they
And
made it.
yeah, they always looked really, really weird. Just go to the image search.
This is actually like
You got to do If They Made It, and it'll show up.
oh sorry. Mated. Got it.
Yes.
Oh,
There you go.
oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that really
Yeah.
messed with people.
Yeah.
That was the whole joke.
Right.
So this is like kind of like the same thing, but for real. So if you go back to the Our Baby AI dot, there we go. Yeah, scroll down. It's just like, this is hilarious because you can essentially build 2 face models, blend them together, and then make it look younger using AI, and that's kind of what's happening here. And it was like, yeah, this legit could be those people's kids. I kind of like. I'd buy it. Yeah, not far off. Is it fun for people? Maybe. I don't know. This is just like a goofy little AI thing. I think it's fun. I think it's funny.
Totally. You just need like a reality filter that's the baby screaming like ah!
Right?
The worst
Yeah,
of
we have
both
to make
of
them not look like a baby in a photo studio.
you. Yeah. Whoa, weird. Why do they have these? I guess that's how to upload the photo. Got it. Cool. Yeah, just tie that up with some CRISPR, and you've got the baby designer of the future.
And the artificial wombs that are being created now too, which is also a pretty wild. Uh, I think it's like there's like a factory somewhere with like they're planning it with like 30,000 like a capacity for like 30,000 babies or something, and it's like totally like the Matrix, essentially a bunch of babies growing in essentially artificial wombs. It's really wild. This is a weird article. This is about implications on abortion rights and stuff, but
First artificial womb facility.
yeah. Yeah, look, there are 30,000 babies a year.
Yeah. And there it is.
I don't know if that's. I hope that's not it. That's freaky,
Oh,
man.
God. Anyway, okay. So that's side note.
Yep. So check out another one. Such interiors AI. There's a few of these, and again, I think this is just something kind of fun. This is like for people to use at home. I don't think you could really fire your interior designer, but like, look, there's a picture of kitchen, and then like, here's it is if your kitchen was redesigned and redone.
Right.
It's not good. Like, I tried one, and I don't know how it interprets the rooms, and like, look at the size of that bathtub, right? Like, that's not like,
What is
or
that?
what is that?
I think
Like,
maybe
that's a
a
bathtub
bidet?
/ whatever. So it's very rough. It does not give practical, polished designs. It kind of gives you some rough ideas. It's
Right.
like, Mid-Journey for web designs, where it's like, this doesn't really work. Like, this isn't functional, but this is interesting, right? Like, what's going on in the bottom left with that like mini like washing machine or something, right? Like, that's so janky. Like, that doesn't like that's so weird. I don't know what that is.
But
And
it's
so
like it's like a it's like a sketch. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, here's a different way you could think about it. Maybe like, just squint your eyes and it kind of makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. It's like a
they've got
dream almost. Yeah.
I'm they should have some like hero images that they made rather than just the
Yeah.
like random ones.
Yeah.
This is by Levels.io, Peter Levels, who's doing a bunch of good work in this space.
Levels.io. I see. This guy?
This guy, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool.
All right, here, one more.
Text to Pokemon. Oh, yeah, nice.
Exactly. So just pick a prompt. Let's see how this goes.
What is it?
The suspense. The suspense.
Yeah, this is a great platform, Replicate. They're definitely like provide APIs, but they also have like a bunch of these widgets. There you are. Shockingly similar.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
What? Oh, that's good. Yeah, I love Replicate. They were like really early on the scene of like providing the stable diffusion stuff. And then like a bunch of people remix these APIs, and then you can use their APIs.
Oh, sick.
Generation ControlNet. There we go. ControlNet is pretty cool. Yeah, ControlNet's the one that like basically takes the outlines and fills it in based on maintains pose. So I think it's interesting to think like what are the levers that people can creatively have over this image output. So I think the previous and prevailing metaphor for image editing is layers, and that's like Figma, Photoshop, Sketch. All these things have layers. What is because it's not layers anymore. Like this isn't about layers. This is about contours. It's about references. It's about keywords. It's about blending. And so it'll be the one that my mind goes to is a node based interface, like where you like connect these little
Yep.
spaghettis together, but I don't like that. But I do wonder what will be the new prevailing mental model for thinking about image manipulation, image creation, because it probably won't be layers. Like I don't think maybe it'll be like a retrofitted layer model, but we'll see. Should be interesting.
There- There's something really interesting about that because that's a great question. I really love that question. And when you think about all the like background replacement stuff, it's like in your mind, there's kind of a background, a midground, a foreground, right? But there's not like, you know, like if you think about a Photoshop file that you made that has like 200 layers or something, right? Where it's like you've got all these like blend mode layers and like little cropping layers and there's just like I've made Photoshop files that are way too big. And I remember looking at them thinking like it's so silly that I need all these layers to make this image. Like this is confusing. This isn't like a great experience for me as a creator. And then uh, yeah, things get out of hand, pretty quickly. Thinking about, okay, well, now that we don't have to worry about those details, what do we worry about and how do we interact with the images we're creating? Um, this I think in the sort of node-based interface that's been really popular in like Blender, right? It's like a great node-based one. I've always thought it was cool, but I've never used one. I just thought it was cool, and I wanted to make stuff that used like a node-based thing. Um, but I think it's for gearheads. I don't think it's for regular people. I think it's for like really high-end applications that require like a lot of tweaking and like inputs from one thing going into another. And maybe when people are generating things en masse, like that type of thing makes more sense. But I feel like LLMs kind of did the work of removing a lot of that for us in a way. It's going to be, we just talk about what we want more.
Yeah, I will say that. So let's see, Meta Spark Studio. So at Meta, there is like just a lot of noodles. So I think Spark has noodles. So I don't know if I can see a screenshot, but and then there's Origami, which is very much like a noodle-based prototyping tool,
Hmm.
and they've never fit with me because they have the illusion of being simple because they're visual, but then they
Yes.
don't have the level of control you would get from code. So they're kind of this weird in between. And then whatever you create, because stuff isn't like aligned or there's not like a structure to it, it kind of becomes your brain. And then if somebody else looks at this thing, they're like, I have no clue
Yeah.
what is happening here because
Yeah.
you've just like had layers and layers of it. So I don't know that it is the right way to do it. It is kind of the most straightforward. Yeah, here's I don't know. It is the most straightforward way to like try to visualize a programming um, language, but it may just not be a good idea.
Yeah. No, that, you know what? I'll buy it. I'm not going to argue with that one. I'm going to say that all of that makes perfect sense. Um, Having never used one myself.
No,
You know what? That's not true. I've used some in After Effects. There's some noodly type stuff. Um,
that's right. Yeah, yeah. After Effects and Blender. So these things exist. Noodles and
Sparks, right? Nodes.
nodes, right? I don't know. There we
There
go.
you go.
Yeah. So that's the Spark Studio one, which is like a super powerful tool for making 3D stuff. I guess the other thing I was going to say about just like the future metaphor of layers, like even here they have layers. Oh, this is Blender, so even here they have layers, right? But the so there's the technology that's generating these images, but then there's also like what are the new modes of output or visualizing this stuff, and they're increasingly going to be 3D. So in the way that we worked before, you could worry about layers and like kind of do masking and because you're just dealing with a 2D image. But once
Yes.
we move to like you're actually generating a 3D image, you do need to think about depth and you need to think about like how is this going to look from the side. And so I think that'll be interesting too because the new tools will have to account for the 3D representation of stuff.
Hmm.
You know,
The I keep thinking about it from the perspective of if it's so easy to generate an image, how much easier is it going to be able to create a GIF, or like, kind of just like like a roughly still life that's like moving a little bit, and then how much life does that add, to the internet, to screens that we're using, like, if you're
Mm,
scrolling through a newsletter, and normally you would see like a stock photo image of, you know, let's just say like a plate with some food on it, and whatever, and then you see the same one, but it's actually got some hands kind of like moving around, or like subtle light coming through a window, and the dappled light through the trees or something, and it's like, oh, this moment is so much richer. It's like a reel rather than like an image, or like a short, almost, rather than a, um, like a YouTube short, you know what I mean? Or like a TikTok. Like if you could generate that type of really small, um, video that quickly, that seems like it's going to be powerful.
yeah, totally. And I think like maybe a way to think about that is, this is what Apple used to look like, and it was like kind of amazing that you could have these images. And I remember like there was hover, like little hover
Yeah, yeah.
glints here, and oh, it's like a hover effect. And now it's just like a full-on 4K streaming video in the background. And like
Holy
you go to
smokes.
these like little product pages, and they are just like in themselves like this entire video game that's kind of playing out for you.
Man, I
Um,
wonder what they spend on these product pages. Like
oh
this
yeah,
got to be such a big, project. It can't be like two people making this thing. If it
totally.
is, kudos to them.
Oh yeah, no, this would cost a lot of money, but I would venture to say they spent the same amount of money on this.
Yeah, back then,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. But like you're saying, like you can see that difference. Even now, we take it for granted, but websites now are so rich, and you can just imagine looking back at these and be like, oh my gosh, it's just 2D. Like why
Yeah.
why isn't it moving around? Like why can't I hop into that world or whatever it is? So yeah, that'll be like the new editing tool is how do I think about a world that's not just flat layers? How do I think about a world you can hop into?
Mm.
One thing I did want to mention, I know we're like coming up on time, but I'm super stoked about this. I've ordered this like a month and a half ago, and it's coming soon. And
What is it?
this is called M5 Stack, and it's an open source kind of hardware platform. It's like Arduino, and you can use the Arduino IDE to
Okay.
develop with it. But basically, you buy these little modules, and then you can make whatever hardware you want to make. So it came up for me when you were talking about like some people just focus on solving the problems that are in front of them, and then some people kind of or some companies or some organizations go for how can we double down on the thing that's working really well. And
Hmm.
for me, like working with Arduinos, the most frustrating bit is the soldering. And so these things you just snap them all together, and they've kind of been pre-soldered, and the pins are there, and they're just all pluggable into each other, and you can achieve what you want to achieve. And so for me, I want to make a little walkie-talkie that's like internet connected that you drop into a room, you admin through a web interface, and so I can do that all with this. I'm hoping I can do that all with this M5 stack, and then take that and be like, hey, I want to mass produce this now, like slim it down, make it cheaper. But I'm really excited about what this offers for people who want to just like hack with some hardware. So many different use cases. They've got like a bunch of AI stuff and like voice assistants, but it's all based on ESP, which is a really cheap version of Arduino. They end up being like less than $1 per microcontroller. So yeah, I think we'll just see more and more of this hackable hardware alongside
Mm.
the new AI use cases.
It's interesting to think about how, like, I think about this from not just like the hobbyist perspective, um, but from the early stage startup building hardware perspective. If they're, I wonder how many use cases there are around, early stage businesses using this to sort of hack together a solution, and try to see if it actually works for customers before going down the route of building out, uh, like a custom built product, essentially, right?
Totally. Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
something that happens now? I don't know much about this space.
Yeah, I think I mean in turn like cuz the first group of people you're like kind of user testing. It's like not a full product. So like people definitely slap together stuff with microcontrollers. Um Hardware is hard. And it hasn't been as pluggable or as like quickly hackable as software has been. So this is the equivalent of like throwing up a website and just like running stuff out of a Google spreadsheet. It's like it's expensive, more expensive per unit. It's
Yes.
not going to scale, but it's going to allow you to get to your use case. There's some use cases like wearing a watch, which is like the value is the form factor, like it needs to be really small. There's other cases where the value isn't about the size, like a home assistant or something like that. And in which case you can kind of hack it here, or like a door sensor, security system, or like they have agriculture or weather station. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that you could do, and then scale out the technology once it's doing what you want it to do. But the nice thing about this is it's like a multi-purpose technology. So if you were scaling something, you'd have to be like, oh well, let's remove the microphone, or like let's not have the
Right.
heat sensor. Here you can just like try it all, and then only scale what customers want. Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at all those
Anyway,
use
I turned
cases.
into a
It's
sales pitch for M5 Stack. I'm just excited to receive my little package from China.
Shout out M5 Stack.
Uh
There we
oh,
go.
no audio. Weird.
No audio from me.
Your audio is gone. So sad.
Yeah. I can hear you.
But I can see it changing, so it may be my output is screwed up.
All right, let's call it a wrap.
Wrap it up. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's do like for me, a silent wrap up. Oh, here we go. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us for the podcast. This has been fun. Any last words, Al?
No.
Nope, no last words. Till next time.